Hello, everyone. Welcome to MarketBeat Mondays. We are so glad you are here to start your week with us. Today, we have just Chris Markoch joining us. Chris, thank you so much for being here to share some more of these major market moves happening this week. It's the day that everyone has been waiting for, or the week that everyone has been waiting for, and that's the Fed rate cut. I feel like the market has been anticipating this for so long, again, assuming this cut could be coming this week. I think the big question is, what is the market doing leading up to Wednesday?
The market was up mostly today. The NASDAQ was the biggest winner. I think the last time I looked, Bridget, it was up about 0.75%. Maybe it might have gone a little higher there to end the day. But yeah, I mean, I think generally stocks are trying to climb higher, but they're looking for catalysts, I think, beyond just the Fed move. Actually, I'm looking at it right now. The NASDAQ ended up 0.94%, so just under 1%. Looked like the S&P even made a little rally there to end the day, up nearly 0.5%. So yeah, I think investors are pretty much lining up right now for a rate cut, which I think is probably going to come in at 0.25%, and I think that's pretty much already baked into it.
Yeah, I think that's the key question there is, are these already baked in? I think there's been so much anticipation, so many investors talking about this, expecting this. Could we see moves up or down, whatever this rate cut comes in at, just simply because it's already kind of been priced in?
No, if I had to guess, I would say I think stocks may go. It wouldn't surprise me if stocks maybe went a little bit lower after the announcement, just because, again, I think the market expects it. I think some of the market observers this week might be hoping that the cut comes in larger at 0.5%, but I really don't see that happening. Jerome Powell has not wanted to surprise markets very much, and I think he's pretty much signaled that this is going to be a 0.25% rate cut, and I think that's what you would get.
Very good. Well, let's get on to some of the biggest market movers today, and that's big tech. Let's go over some of the big tech names that saw some big moves today.
Yeah, so Tesla's up strong. It was up about 3.5% today, and the news there is that Elon Musk has been buying back shares recently. In fact, apparently he's had several buys over the last, month or so, and it's totaled about $1 billion of shares that he bought back. And so the market liked that, and Tesla's benefiting as a result.
Yeah, I think that's one of the questions we have from TC is this sustainable? Is this sustainable momentum, or is Elon just kind of, boosting up this company for now with this major announcement today?
Yeah, a singular announcement like this is never sustainable in and of itself. But I think what investors have to really be looking at is Tesla was trending upwards before this. It was up about 17% in the last week. So, I think the question here is there's a larger story for Tesla. Tesla looked like it got a little bit oversold. I think you've got some investors plowing back into it, but Tesla's been a conviction story for a while. I think it just depends on if you have conviction about the long-term businesses, as far as Optimus goes, as far as autonomous goes, as far as energy storage goes, then I think Tesla's an interesting company. If you're looking at it as just an EV play, it's not as interesting to me right now.
Yeah, good point, Chris. I think let's move on to the next one. This is somebody, Damon just commented about Google, and that was the next one that you wanted to talk about. What's going on with Alphabet?
Yeah, so Alphabet's been having a pretty good run here since the antitrust legislation ended. Essentially, if investors are not familiar with, essentially what happened is the regulators decided to leave Alphabet alone. They didn't force the company to break up their search business. That's positive for Apple as well as for Alphabet. And just today, Alphabet went over the $3 trillion market cap level. They're only the fourth company to do that. So right now, Alphabet's had a nice tailwind from that. And that looks like it could be going, that looks like there could be some run to it. I mean, you're going to have lower interest rates. That tends to benefit tech companies because they rely on borrowing to fund their business, and they're going to be borrowing that money at a lower interest rate.
Very good. There's one other big tech company to talk about today before we move on to some other interesting names you haven't heard of yet. We're going to talk about Nvidia. What is happening with
Sure.
that stock today?
Yeah, so Nvidia went down a little bit today. I haven't checked to see where it finished, but yeah, so Nvidia's got named. China's saying that there was an antitrust violation with Nvidia, so there seems to be a little bit of news over that. I'm not sure if this is anything for investors to worry about. I didn't have a chance to really dive that much in on the story, but this sounds like it's a sell the news moment. And unless this turns into something much bigger, it's probably a little bit of a dip that maybe investors can get in on and buy.
Sharman had a really good question, and that is we've seen so much of a jump in Broadcom, and we also saw that really big jump in Oracle. Why is Nvidia not jumping alongside some of these other huge leaps that we saw in the AI sector?
Boy, that's a great question. So off the top of my head, what I would say is I think investors have been looking for alternatives to Nvidia for a while. And I don't think that has anything to do with the fact that they expect Nvidia to disappoint. I think it's one of those that I think a lot of investors are expecting that Nvidia is going to continue to grow well, but that maybe that growth is going to start to normalize. And they're looking just for places to pivot. Oracle gave them a reason to pivot. Broadcom, has given them a reason to pivot. And I think investors are taking advantage of that. That would be just the off the cuff answer I have.
I think it's a great answer. I love some of the different stock suggestions coming in right now. I see a few stocks in common that multiple people want to hear about, so we're going to get to those in a minute. If this is your first time at MarketBeat Monday, what we do, we normally have 3 of us here, so today it's just 2, but we'll take some of your stock suggestions right from the chat and do a cold look at the stock and give a quick little analysis about what's going on in that stock today and whether now is a good time to get in or anything like that. So put some more names in the comments. We'd love to see them. Before we get to your suggestions, Chris and I have another sector we're going to cover, and that's biotech. Let me know in the chat right now. Are you interested in biotech or not? Some of the stocks we're going to talk about are really interesting. Chris, you and I just put out a video yesterday about 3 biotech companies under $5, and there were some different suggestions in the comments on that video of different stocks people wanted to look at that, and some of them are really interesting. We'll just rapid fire through some of these biotech companies quick. Again, let me know in the chat right now if you're interested in biotech or not. These names, though, are kind of interesting. Let's go to that first one, Chris.
Yeah, the first one that you told me about was Recursion Pharmaceuticals. That ticker symbol is RXRX. Interesting company here, and I'll admit, Bridget, all these names you gave me, they're new to me, and I think that really just goes to show what's happening here in the biotech space. It's there's a lot of companies and a lot of companies that fit into this category of stocks under $5 that are in the speculative phase. Recursion's one that's really interesting. So they're a company that has a digital biology platform, and what they're doing is using AI to accelerate drug discovery. So as investors in this space know, the clinical trial process takes a long time. And one of the risks, of course, is that the drug could fail. One way to help not ensure success, but help make success more likely is to have a lot of these drugs screened beforehand so that you're presenting probably the best possible drug candidates. And Recursion's process apparently shortens that process that could take over like 10 years, and it shortens it to weeks. So that's why there's some interest in the stock. It has its own candidates in its own pipeline. I'm trying to look to see. Some of those are none of them are beyond phase 1 or 2, so they're still fairly early in the pipeline, but they do have their own drugs for oncology and rare diseases. The interesting thing here and where they're generating revenue is through partnerships that they've made, because obviously the big pharma companies get interested in partnering with somebody like Recursion because they want access to the platform. So that's how Recursion's generating money right now. I see the stock had a big dip at the beginning of this year. Again, at Bridget, this is a new to me stock, so I don't exactly know why that big drop was.
Right.
But right now, the stock does look interesting as far as if you're looking to get into it right now.
Yeah, we've got a couple people in the comments saying right now, one said they've been in RXRX for a while and it hasn't done anything except go down. And that is something we see in pharmaceuticals. It just takes a long time in these biotech companies for something to happen. But I always think it's interesting to look at the upside. Analyst forecasts can sometimes be wild. And we've got another one to talk about 2 stocks from now that has a wild upside from analysts. But this one, it's showing a 52% upside, which is interesting. Just because in the sake of time, because we've got lots of different stocks that are coming in and questions coming in, let's move on to the next one. We're just going to rapid fire through a few of these biotech companies. The next one is PGEN, Precigen, I believe.
Precigen, yeah. I don't know for sure that's how it's pronounced, but that's what it seems like. So, okay, the story with Precigen, as I'm seeing it right now, is they've recently had a drug that got approved by the FDA. So yay for them. Stock's up over 135% in the last 3 months. That explains why, because whenever you can get a drug across the finish line, that means ding, 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 revenue's on the way. So they have the drug is called, let me see here. The drug is called, okay, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's Papzimeos, Papzimeos. And the company has just signed a credit facility agreement for $125 million to support that launch. So that means that's just how they can get the drug to market. So investors are excited because, again, revenue's on the way. The company's not yet profitable, but now that they have the drug and they have it in market, that should be changing around. Let me look at what the analysts have to say about it.
I've got that up right now, Chris. It looks like they've got 129% upside, which is a good upside for a small stock.
And I'm sure that a lot of that is, again, due to the fact that now that I see that, there have been some significant upgrades to the stock and boost and price target increases since the middle of August. So the analysts are getting excited because now they see this is one of those examples of, okay, you probably waited on this for a long time. Now you're finally seeing a drug get out into the commercial use. So that's why the stock's moving up.
Yes. All right. Well, let's move on to this next one, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
I've got the most interesting part pulled up, so I'm just going to put that up full screen right away. That's the consensus price target on this one. It looks like right now, 2,100 or 2,190% upside on a tiny little $1 stock that has a price target of $23. It almost seems like this has to be a glitch, right? Like this can't be.
No, I don't think it's a glitch, but I think the other thing that's very interesting about the stock is the chart today, and the chart is it's ugly. Let's just say that the reason for that, Bridget, is because this morning, I think it was right around the time the market opened, the company had mixed results in their phase 3 drug trial. So it was their initial candidate. It's in phase 3 trials. Investors were really excited. That's why the stock was up over $7 or so. And the results didn't come in that good, which doesn't necessarily mean that they have to go back to the drawing board. But I'm seeing headlines that say they're going back to the FDA. They're going to try to talk to the FDA, see what maybe has to happen. But in any event, there's a delay. There's going to be a delay in getting this drug to market. I don't necessarily think it means that it was a failure, but people that have been maybe into the stock longer than I have, maybe they have some knowledge of that I don't have. But that's why it went down. Now, one thing that I noticed when you talked about the analyst forecast was, so it did get Wells Fargo just today reiterated its overweight rating on the stock. And so did another analyst firm named Leerink Partners. They reiterated an outperform rating. Now that was contrasted by Cantor Fitzgerald and H.C. Wainwright, which downgraded the stock from what were essentially buy ratings to neutral. So it looks like there's mixed opinions on this report. This is unfortunately, this is just something that happens when you're in biotech, and it's a risk you take. But yeah, the company just did not hit on their phase 3 results, and they're getting punished today.
Yeah, I think that volatility, again, this chart is just wild to see this massive drop
really
off
is.
today. But it is also, if you've been in biotech and invested in this before, I think it's something that you have to expect to see that volatility. It makes you wonder, is now the time to get in on a smaller, riskier play like this when it's had such a dramatic drop, and yet there's still some analysts who are confident in the future of this company? Is this $1 entry point a good time to get on this stock that still has a really high consensus price target?
Yeah, again, having not followed the stock, I don't know how devastating this news is. Potentially, yes, this could be potentially a great opportunity. Depending on where you got into the stock to begin with, this may be a time to go back in and add to your position if you believe that the stock can, that the company's going to get through this and they'll be able to resubmit and get through the phase 3 trial. Who knows? I don't know. Like I said, I'm not really that familiar with the stock, but that's what you're going to have to be looking at right now.
All right, very good. Well, let's get to some of the comments coming in on the chat. There's a lot to talk about today, Chris. Sure. We're going to start with one that you're familiar with. It's something that's stocks that come up a lot. JOBY and ACHR. There was a little bit of a pullback, I believe, in some of them today or over the weekend. So let's pull up both of their charts. I've got the screens right now. It looks like ACHR is actually up 10% over the last 5 days, which is a nice little run up for the stock that's been down quite a bit recently. I'll give you some time. I'm going to just talk through what we're seeing in the charts so you can
see. JOBY looks like it's up about 6% in the last 5 days. So
yeah, the question is now a time to get in on that? And if you think that it could be going quite a bit higher yet.
So, I might not be as bullish as our friend Jeffrey, Bridget, but I like this industry. I think the products are really interesting, and I think there is a future in this space. And I think the future can accommodate both JOBY and ACHR. I know Thomas has talked about this a lot on the channel. JOBY appears to be further along in the process than ACHR is. But the thing that interests me about ACHR is they're lining up a lot of really interesting partnerships. They already have the deal for the 2028 Olympics, Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. That's going to be a perfect place for for the technology to be implemented, because I'm not sure if you're aware, Bridget, I've just been learning about this in the past couple of months, but there's going to be a lot of venues for that Olympics that are outside of California.
Yeah.
And even in places like Colorado and other states. So they're going to need transportation that gets people to and from those sites. And those are just the type of places, not to mention that they're going to need transportation around the greater Los Angeles area. So there's a good opportunity there. I just saw, because I was trying to figure out why ACHR might be running up so high in the last week. So ACHR just was named as part of the White House's new electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft program. So in other words, those images that you see of the president getting in the helicopter to go to Camp David, that may now be, or to go to Andrews Air Force Base, that may be now taken up by eVTOLs. That's an interesting win for the company. But again, I think JOBY is a little further along, not necessarily an FAA certification, but they just seem to be much more ready to hit the ground running when they are certified. But we'll wait and see. I think it's an interesting space. I do think if you believe in where this sector has the potential to go, yes, I think now is still a good time to get in on both stocks. Looking at JOBY's down about 14% in the last month, and that looks like a nice buyable dip if you're going to get into it. Did you say you had the Archer chart up?
Yep, I've got both of them up right now.
Okay, I don't have Archers up, so I'm trying to get that up.
Yeah, Archer's down about 7.5% in the last month, down 9% over the last 3 months. So again, it's a buy the dip opportunity on both of them. I think the interesting thing to point out on both of these, just the charts here, is that Archer still has an analyst rating at a moderate buy with some upside in the consensus price target. Now, all of this depends on how much stock you put into the consensus price targets and those analyst ratings.
Right.
But JOBY's got a negative one on the analyst forecast. It's a hold. It's got a downside on the consensus price target. So I think that's the difference between the two. Otherwise, their charts look fairly similar.
Yeah, I think sentiment there over the last few months, I think sentiment has been leaning towards JOBY and away from Archer, and I think what it created was a situation where JOBY may have gotten a little bit overbought and Archer got a little bit oversold, and now I think the market's trying to come back. Again, I don't think there's room in this space for both companies and probably more, but I think right now, I think that's what you're seeing right now. Is I think JOBY just got a little bit ahead of itself. Archer got a little bit oversold, and now the market's trying to even that out a little bit.
Well, that's a good look at those two. Now we're going to run into some new names. We're throwing some new ones at you, Chris. We're going to look at Oklo, which we've talked about before, and we're going to talk about NU. So I'll give you time to look up NU. I'm just going to run through some of the chart on Oklo so then we can talk about that. I'm pulling up the chart here. It looks like it's up 28% in the last 5 days, which is a really good jump for a stock that was kind of trading sideways, even in a downtrend at the end of August. So it's interesting to see this big jump. People are asking, is this time to get in on the momentum run here, or do you wait for another pullback? Oklo has been a stock that we've talked about on this channel multiple times.
Yeah, they're the company that's doing the small nuclear reactors. It's an interesting company for sure. Let me look here on the chart. Yeah, so they bounced off their 50-day moving average. They did that. Let's see, when was that?
Yeah, that I do have to point out that 52-week range on this stock is wild to see that it was at $6 and now up at 95 is quite a run up in just 1 year.
Yeah, so they bounced up really significantly off that 50-day moving average, and they're now well above the consensus price. What I'm looking at here, though, is, let's see, it is looking like they're running even higher than the highest analyst rating, which does suggest that there could be a little bit of a pullback in order. Let me see. They don't report earnings until November. That's a little disappointing for investors. So, yeah, I guess I'm looking at this and thinking, boy, as a trade, it seems like it might be a little tricky to get in on it right now. And even if I were looking at it as a long-term play, I'd probably want the stock to pull back a little bit. It looks like it might be outrunning itself a little bit. Let me look at some other things here. The MACD just turned positive, so that's encouraging.
Always a good sign.
Yeah, the relative strength indicator is making it look a little bit overbought right now. Again, if I were looking at this in terms of trading it, I'm going to want to see and make sure that volume really increases. It looks like it had a big day today, or at least a better than average day today. If I'm getting in on it as a momentum stock, I want to see that volume stay up.
Very good. Well, thank you for giving us a look at Oklo. Let's get to some more names because there's a lot coming in still. NU, this is a different one I've not seen before. It's a parent company of Nubank, a digital banking platform.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you covered this one before?
Not recently, but I've heard of it. Yes, and yes, the stock's doing awesome here. Another strong chart, especially over the last month. It's had a really nice chart. You're seeing, that thing that a lot of investors love with higher highs and higher lows. So it's in a bull pattern. Let's see where it's at with analysts. So analysts are still saying there's about a consensus of about a 7% upside. Yeah. This is another one. It doesn't report earnings until November, so we're not going to hear much from this in terms of that for another couple of months.
Yeah, I think that the only real question here, again, it's a really strong chart, is now the time to get in? And when you see so much strength happening in a chart, is it a good time to just put it on a watch list, or is it a time to actually jump in?
Let me again go back here. I think we're going to be seeing a similar story here to Oklo. Yeah, I mean, again, it's trading well above its moving average. It's really the same story, I think, that you've got going on with Oklo. The MACD is positive, but the relative strength indicator showing that the stock's a little bit overbought right now, and I see that volume was a little lower than average today. So I think before you were to try to get in on this stock, you're going to want to see higher volume to sustain the rally. If not, this is certainly one to have on the watch list for a pullback, because I think this is one that you're going to want to be on the pullback, especially because it's getting into that digital banking platform. This is a good area that if you are interested in finance stocks like this, I think this is one to have on the watch list, but I think it's probably a little overextended right now.
All right, a good analysis on that one. Thank you so much, Chris. Let's move on to some other names. We'll do a familiar one. A few different people have asked about SoFi. No idea what's happening there, but we do know that company. So we'll look up and get a little update on that one. It looks like we've had a couple of different people want to hear about Bull. I'm just trying to get to the ones that we're seeing maybe more than once that are out there. And then we another request to talk about Applied Digital, which we love to talk about on this channel. So we'll get to that one too. We'll look at SoFi first. Let me get the chart up for that one.
Right.
Anything interesting happening?
I'm looking at it. SoFi's had a nice run up here, so it's had a strong run. It's above consensus. So this is a stock that a lot of investors have waited a long time on, and it looks like it might finally be bearing some fruit. But the problem is, like I said, right now it looks like the stock's well above its consensus target.
So I'm going to interrupt you with a question I think maybe some people in the comments might have, because we talk about this stock often. I think we've got people who are interested in it and maybe already in SoFi. Is now a time to take profits if we're finally seeing this run up and you've been in this stock for a while? I think that's a question I think some investors have when you get to see this much of a run up.
Again, without seeing stronger volume in the stock, I think, yes, now might be a good time to take a little profit. I wouldn't get out of the stock totally, but I think this is a time to take a little bit of profit because, again, it's trading a little bit over the consensus average. The PE, the forward PE ratio looks pretty high, but it's had a nice run, and now might not be a bad idea to take some profit off. 96% in the last 3 months. That's a strong gain.
Yeah, that's a very strong gain for that stock that, again, hasn't done a whole lot in a while. So I think people are excited to see that.
Right. It's a stock that's kind of confused me. I've always kind of thought that it should have been going higher, and it looks like it is, but now it may just have gotten over its skis just a little bit.
All right, another interesting chart to pull up here, Chris. We've got the Webull stock performance up. It looks like this must be pretty recent. I haven't paid any attention to this. It was up at 62, maybe on an IPO. Is that what this one is?
Yeah. Let's see. They just IPO'd. I think it was like just about a month ago. No, actually, it was back in. Okay, it was earlier than I thought. It was back in February or something. It IPO'd. So it popped after the IPO. It's come back down. So yeah, Webull. I haven't followed the stock much since it IPO'd. Um, my guess is the interest a lot in this stock has to do with the idea of, can Webull turn into another Robinhood story? And I think that's probably the buy case for it. Webull kind of came on the scene in the same vein as Robinhood. It was there to attract retail investors, give them the opportunity for fractional investing and all that. And Webull's been successful. Now they've IPO'd. I think that's probably why there's a lot of interest here. Let me look at the chart. It's down about 17% in the last month.
I think in general, I'm just curious to hear what's your thoughts on this company. Do you think that they're, with this new IPO, it's a stock many investors, retail investors are familiar with, might use every day. Do you think it has the potential to do well? I don't know if it's exactly the same as comparing to Robinhood, but we've seen Robinhood stock kind of stumble and go back and forth a little bit too, just trying to find where it should be right now.
Well, I think the only reason I bring up the Robinhood story is because I think that's really the reason why you're going to get excited about owning it as a stock. It's a viable trading platform, and I know a lot of investors use it. But whether or not you want to own it as a stock, I think that's really going to depend on where do you see the growth coming for this. I mean, that was sort of the knock against Robinhood was, well, if it's only a stock that retail investors are day trading on or doing whatever on, then it didn't have much value. But Robinhood's shown that now the platform has a lot more utility to it than simply as a stock where people, or as a site people are going on to buy and sell stocks and crypto and such. I want to see more from Webull. And honestly, as I haven't really followed it since the IPO. Right now, the stock looks like it's kind of neutral in terms of its RSI, and so I don't know. I'm not sure if this is the time that investors would want to get in on it. Investing in investing in the IPOs is a little bit tricky, but it's far enough past its launch that you've probably gotten rid of the people that were going to sell have probably already sold. So, but I'm not seeing a lot of movement in the stock over the past 6 months.
Yeah. Miles says bull might hit 16. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I could see that. It's everything with it is kind of neutral. The MACD's neutral. The RSI is kind of neutral. It's bouncing along its moving average. So, the signal there would be is if it gets a meaningful pop above that moving average, that could be your signal to get in on it. Let me check volume on this. Because again, whenever you're looking at stocks like these, you're going to be, the volume is really key. And this is, today it was trading about half of its average volume. So, 16 looks believable, but you're going to have to probably see a little bit more momentum there in terms of the volume. But there's a lot of other things that look positive for it.
Very good. Well, let's move on. We've got a couple of other to cover. We've got maybe 10 minutes left today. So let's go into Applied Digital. This is a stock that we have talked about many times in this channel. It's done really well for people. And I believe, I haven't looked at it today, but I think last week it was starting to see a nice little run up. I'm going to see if that's the story still. Yes, it looks like it's still on that run up, doing pretty well right now for investors. Up 37% in a month. So a nice little jump.
Yep.
Thoughts on what's behind that jump?
Let me see here.
If you don't know about Applied Digital, this is basically a real estate ownership company of a company that owns big data centers, rents them out to some of the larger companies. I'll give you a second, Chris, to look up and see if there's some recent news on the company. One other thing I wanted to share about, we cover Applied Digital a lot at MarketBeat.com too, because there's a lot of investors who are interested in it. We have a new article just out. It's a premium article you can get for free if you scan the QR code or click the link. It's the Applied Digital breakout is only the beginning. seen. So Gabriel Osorio-Mazzilli wrote an article talking about why he thinks Applied Digital's run up is just going to keep getting higher and higher. I know some investors got in on this stock when it was down at $3, $5. It's now up at almost 20. And Gabriel kind of makes a case for why this stock could go even higher. So if you want to check out that article, it's free for you. You can just scan the QR code and go read that on our website whenever you're ready. All right, Chris, let's get back to this stock right now. What are you seeing?
Yeah, so this is getting back to a familiar story for a lot of investors right now. This is AI infrastructure that we're talking about, data centers. We're talking about it operates a network of Bitcoin mining sites. It's a lot of those areas, the cloud computing and things that are just really, it's a long-term story. It's in its early innings, and Applied Digital is right there for what investors are looking at. What I like about this story and what I like about the stock is that it had I'm waiting for the chart to get back up here, but it had a little bit of a pullback, and then it found support really quickly at around that $13.85 level, and now it's shot higher. So yeah, the stock's making some nice moves. From what I've been looking at with the stock over the last year, yeah, there's going to be some ups and downs. That's volatility, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's probably a good thing in terms of a stock like this. But yeah, this looks like a good stock for investors to be getting in on. The long-term story here is still very solidly in place. There's nothing suggesting that this is a short-term story. It's really going to depend on when investors feel comfortable getting involved.
Yeah, I did want to make a note really quick. There's a new analyst coverage that just came out today too. Ed Engel just initiated coverage today, which is interesting. But looking at over the last, really this summer, since June, July, and August, some higher price targets as high as 20 and 23 recently. So there is price targets moving higher, but we're starting to get with this recent jump close to that range already, and definitely above that consensus.
And the RSI for the stock is it's getting right into that overbought range, So, if you don't have a position in it, you're going to want to watch this closely because there may be a little bit of a pullback in that. If you look at the chart though, the pullbacks have been a really good time to get in on the stock because when it does bounce back, it's been bouncing back above the previous high, which is a great sign.
All right, very good. We're going to move to a name that we are very familiar with, but several people want to hear about AMD. It's one we hadn't covered earlier when we were talking about big tech. So pulling that up right now, it looks like it's kind of down for the month, almost down 10% for the month. We're seeing a little bit of an uptrend just in the last week, but nothing too major. Still kind of sideways movement in this stock. Questions we had on AMD is, do you think that it can go to, what was the price target that somebody asked about? I think it was 180. Can we expect AMD to hit 180? It looks like we're at 160 now.
Right.
It was back above 180 just at the start of August. So curious to see when we could get back to that.
I'm a big fan of AMD, and I look at this, and I'm going to borrow a line from Jim Cramer, which may offend some of our listeners who might not like Jim Cramer. This is a stock you buy, you don't trade it. This is just a stock to own because I really think the company is well positioned in the CPU market. I think they're gaining ground in the GPU market. There's a long story here. I think 180 is very achievable. You don't have to worry about trading the stock. Just own it, ride it, buy it on every dip, and I think you're going to be fine. The company has a really sound leadership there with Lisa Su. They're that company that I think a lot of investors are looking for that could say, what type of company can challenge Nvidia? And I'm not sitting here saying they're going to take significant market share from Nvidia in the near term, but they're a company that's really they're executing well. It's obviously it's a market that's getting very competitive and such, but AMD is doing the right things. Again, I think this is just a stock that you buy and you don't worry about trading it. You own it.
Yeah, that's a good take on this one. Miles has a different take. He thinks it's going to continue to drop to around 133 before it starts to climb again. Interesting concept.
Again, that and if you're looking to trade the stock, then that's probably that's something that you're going to really be interested in. Again, to me, if you're looking to buy and hold this stock for the long term, yeah, 133 is great. I would love that, because then you're getting in on it at where it was around the middle of July, and I think you'd get a chance to buy it, and you'd see it run right back up and get that 38% that it's got over the last 3 months. Again, to me, this is just a stock you own, you don't trade, but we're not here to tell investors what to do. We're just giving them our 2 cents.
Yes, and just because Thomas isn't here today, I'm also going to give a pitch for, if you haven't watched his video on AMD, it came out last week on Tuesday, and he made a really bull case for AMD, talking about a possibility of 100% revenue growth for this company, just with the market potential that's out there. Not even 100%, I think he said 1,000%. Very interesting.
Wow.
Huge bullish take on how much growth AMD could have in the future. Yeah. So again, if you haven't seen that video, go back on the channel and watch it. That posted last Tuesday. All right, let's cover a couple more names that are coming in, and really we're going to be wrapping up here, but I want to talk about that Fed cut. There's a few different names that people are bringing up because that might be impacted from the Fed cut. So while I pull up some of those stocks, what are your thoughts on industries that could see some moves potentially, or just any kind of an impact from that Fed announcement coming this week?
Yeah, so the thing I would caution investors about is at the end of the day, I hate that phrase, but a 25 basis point cut's not that big of a deal. It's really not. And again, I think a lot of that's already been priced into a lot of stocks. So I don't think that that's really the story. I think the story, like a company that reports earnings, I think the key thing here is going to be the guidance. What does the guidance say? And do we get tipped on the idea of, when are other rate cuts coming? Are they coming this year? If so, how many? That's going to be really more of the story for investors. If there's a sense that there's going to be more rate cuts than people think, and there might be, and we might be seeing, we might be seeing interest rates go down by 75 basis points by the end of the year. Okay, then there might be some sort of story here, and I would expect that story would be playing out in consumer discretionary. I think you would see some retail stocks get a benefit, especially thinking about the holiday seasons going forward. Tech certainly would be a place to be, and bank stocks, because especially the regional banks, because they're going to do well if interest rates go down.
Yeah, I think that was one of the questions, was about kind of the banking sector and what we might expect for that if we do get some rate cuts. I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling through comments trying to figure out who had a question about the chat. But let's talk the one stock to bring up here that I don't think we've talked about on the channel before. It's PJT. I've got it pulled up. It looks like it's had a nice little run up in the last 3 months. It's up about almost 20%. Trading sideways for a little bit the last month or so. But this company is investment bank, delivers strategic advisory, restructuring, special solutions, capital solutions to corporations. I think the question with this one was, is this an area where we might see a little bit of a boost because of that rate cut potential?
Let's see here.
Looking at the analyst forecast, it didn't look too exciting there. It looks like it's already trading above that consensus price target, and even the upper end, the highest price target, is just 199, which isn't too far away from where it's trading today. The reduced rating is not great news either.
Yeah, the thing about that I don't know, because this is one of those stocks I'm looking at cold. I don't know what they own. I mean, they're an investment bank, but what are they invested in? What are they, without really knowing that sort of thing, it kind of makes me it would kind of give me a little bit of pause on this.
This one takes a little bit more research than just looking at the chart quick and seeing what analysts have to say.
It's been going sideways, though. You're right. You brought that up correctly. It's been going sideways since about the beginning of July. So that tells me that it's looking for a catalyst. Not sure what that would be. Lower interest rates might be that. But again, I don't really have a line of sight as far as what the company owns.
Well, very good.
It
I
looks
think
like
it's a good
there's
enough
fairly
look
high.
at that one, especially a cold look really quick. We already
Yeah.
went over our time just a little bit, but I wanted to give you a chance to say any final thoughts. Obviously, the Fed is the big news that everyone's watching this week, but if
Right.
we really think it's going to be kind of a non-deal, is there anything else to wrap up what you might be looking at this week as potential moves in the market? Are we going to see anything else that could pop up this week to cause some market moves?
Well, obviously, we're at that stage where any news that you get on the trade front would be interesting, but I don't necessarily think that's going to happen with President Trump being over in England. At least for the next several days, I don't think much is going to happen there. What investors should be looking at: retail sales report is tomorrow morning before the market opens, so investors are going to want to be listening to that, see what that number comes in, get a sense of how strong the consumer is going into this potential rate cut. Wednesday morning, before the Fed announces Wednesday afternoon, there's going to be the information on housing starts and building permit data. And so again, this is kind of being dubbed a move that is going to hopefully unlock the housing market. Again, Thomas and I have talked about this on these Market Beat Mondays before. I don't know if the quarter point rate's going to do much there, but if the Fed signals that there are more coming faster than they assume, that might be a move for the housing market, and the housing market data and the housing starts and the building permits and such may be some sort of clue to that.
Yeah, a lot to watch in the market yet this week. I'm excited to see what happens this week. I think one of the questions is there a big dip coming? And I think that's the question that people have been kind of holding their breath for since April
Right.
this year is, could there be another big dip coming? Could we see some major moves happen? Do you see anything like that happening this fall yet? Or do you think that this is really a wait and see non-story event?
So I'm of the opinion that I don't know if you're going to see a big dip. Now, I think it really depends on what investors consider a big dip. I do think it's possible that you could get a little bit of a pullback in the. I don't think anybody should be like on pins and needles for this week, but again, September and then October are typically weaker months for stocks. They just are. Historically, they just are. It wouldn't surprise me if the market were to come back a little bit and give investors an opportunity to come in. But I see the likelihood that the market's going to rally heading into the end of the year. I think you could see the potential for a little bit of a pullback there to give the market a little bit of a breath and a chance for people to get in before that rally starts towards the end of the year.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much for sharing your predictions and what you think this week has in store. And thank you, everyone who joined us for this live Market Beat Monday. I love to hear from you live. It's always great to hear from you. If you missed that link, I love how everybody asks about our Market Beat shirts. We actually have a public store. You can go get them if you really want a Market Beat shirt. We'd love to see you match us and send some pictures if you can of people supporting Market Beat out there. I love to hear fans who like the show so much. So thank you, everyone who tuned in and shared your comments in the chat. Sorry I couldn't get to everybody. I always wish I could, but we can only cover so many during Market Beat Monday. We'll see you here again next week. As always, everyone, happy investing.